Hey, let's talk about journaling right now, okay? Because a lot of you leftists out there really need to write some stuff down. So we've been talking about spiritual health for leftists on this channel. I've been talking about mindfulness and then meditation and now journaling. And journaling may not be for everyone. That's also why we're talking about several different spiritual practices. For one, it may be helpful to some of you out there to know all of these spiritual practice and practice all of them. But for some of you others out there, maybe just one or two of them would actually be helpful to someone like you. Or you can actually try one out for a bit and then try something else out for a bit. That's why we're doing all these different ones. And so journaling has been proven to help a lot of people relieve stress, also help a lot of people discover things about themselves that were deep down that was extremely difficult to bring out unless they journaled. And me personally, I've journaled off and on in the past. This is the particular practice in this series that I'm not super involved in. And so because of that, I wanted to get a clip of my good friend Colin to talk about his journey with journaling, because he, oh my goodness, is a journaling fiend. He's always been journaling for years. So much journaling, filling book after book after book up that even this year, earlier this year during Lent, he gave up journaling because he was realizing it was becoming a bit of a crutch for him. And so he stopped journaling for 40 days and then went back on it. And so check out this clip from my friend Colin talking about his journey with journaling.
I've journaled a lot. I've probably filled 15, 20 journals full of my process of life through 10 years, ups and downs. It's held a lot of things. And I think it's taught me a lot, and it wasn't always the easiest thing to do. And as I reflect back, I think it's taken a lot of different shapes. As I've reflected on it when I was in a more evangelical world and just thinking through that lens, I think it involved a lot of me kind of wishing my pains away and hoping for a better world. And I don't think that was bad necessarily. In the season, I think it was what needed to happen, I guess, but over time it's definitely changed a lot. And as I've read my journals from back then and now, I can definitely see a shift in how I think about it. So I think just to start off about journaling, I think one of the most important things is it teaches you to be reflective and to think about who you are as a person and how you relate to yourself and other people and the world, and what your thoughts are about things. It's just a place to keep that there, and no one's grading you, no one's telling you to do it. It's for you. It's for you to do and to inquire about whatever you want about yourself, and just to kind of track your journey. I think it also, it's very, you just kind of can follow you can just follow your thoughts wherever they want to go. There's no set prompt. You can just go, and if there's a thought you want to maybe come back to later, you can take a note and return to it. But there's no boundaries of where you can go. So I think with that, I want to say just a few things on kind of where I'm at now with journaling and how it has served me. Quick disclaimer is that journaling isn't always easy, and I think if you're going to start journaling, be prepared that it might be a little uncomfortable at first, maybe awkward, like you're meeting somebody for the first time or something, because you kind of are. So it might be kind of weird, but I think over time you start to develop a voice and start to understand who you are and how you relate to everyone else a little better. So anyway, those few things I wanted to talk about. The first one would just be there's no wrong way to do it. You can bring up topics from the day, things you read about that you want to explore, but it really gives you a place to be contemplative and to just be reflective on what's going on. And no one's there to tell you if it's right or wrong. It's just for you. The other thing I wanted to mention, number 2, would be that I think journaling serves as a good metaphor for life and just the way in which everything is welcome, and it helps you to kind of see that and to live that out in real time. There's no wrong way to do it. So any emotion good or bad, or that hurts, or that feels good, can be found in a journal. And there's no judging of it. You might be judging it, but in looking back, you get to see it as all part of your process. And I think number 3, which I think is honestly the biggest one for me now, especially in this season, as I am no longer in an evangelical space, is that it helps me to have a relationship with my negative emotions and bad feelings. It helps me to dance with it and to be curious about it, because things come up all the time that trigger me, that piss me off, that I don't understand or know. But it gives me a place to go where I can just get the thoughts on paper, and maybe I can explore it a little more, be curious about it in that moment. Maybe I can come back to it later. Maybe I can take it to my therapist, but it kind of gives you some, just a place to have it written down so you can come back to it. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing, is it gives you a place to be curious about things that you might have deemed as bad. And I think as you become curious about it, you realize that it's not bad, and you're just becoming friends with the shadow side of you that you might not have known. So yeah, I think that's all I got to say about journaling for now.
I like how Colin talked about how it can feel uncomfortable at first, like you're meeting someone for the first time, and that someone is you. You see, these days we have to be really careful about what we say and how we say it, and that's largely a good thing, because we are becoming more conscious and sensitive of how people who experience life different than us actually feel and live. But we need to still be able to communicate unfiltered at times. Not to the world. No, I'm not talking about that. But be able to communicate somehow, even if it's just between you and you. I'm sure there are a lot of things that you really want to talk about to help yourself figure out that you feel like you can't express publicly without risking getting canceled out here. And so what you need to do is simply just write it out. Write out your thoughts and emotions to figure out what you're trying to figure out. That's one of the ways that you can do that. And for some reason, some of you use Twitter for this, which I can't believe I actually have to say this. That's a bad idea. Like seriously, even like a lot of bread tubers out there, a lot of leftist creators in this online space seem to just tweet whatever is on their mind.
If you're doing it, stop it. Get some help.
Stop it. Stop just tweeting whatever comes to your mind. That's not a good idea.
This ain't it, Chief!
If it's something you're trying to work through and figure out by voicing it, don't tweet it, write it out before you ever think of doing that, or call a friend and tell them, and perhaps by that point you won't feel such a great need to vent through Twitter. Like if you think of some of the biggest scandals from some of the biggest leftist content creators, a lot of these scandals over the last few years started with a problematic tweet, and then them later regretting it, and then later apologizing for it, and sometimes being forgiven, and sometimes not. I'm telling you, a lot of you out there just need to get a journal and write out your emotions and thoughts. I'm not saying journaling is the solution to everything. I'm saying part of being a healthy human being is having personal communication in your life, personal communication between you and your family, you and some close friends, and even personal communication just between you and you. And by the way, if you're watching this thinking, based on what I'm saying, I'm like picking a certain side of some particular Twitter drama, think about this. Everything I'm saying is a very true and relevant statement if I would have said it at any point last year, any point the year before that, and most likely any point the next year as well. This is just a forever true and relevant statement right here. Stop tweeting whatever you're thinking. And this also makes me think of repression as well. We repress so much because we all experience such hardships throughout life. All of us do. And yet, everything we repress comes up and manifests in some way. We can't help it. And it may manifest itself through anxiety or through emotional outbursts or through addictions. And in psychoanalysis, there's this concept of sublimation as a sign of maturity, the ability to manifest our trauma by transforming it into something creative, like art or music or poetry or storytelling or even just journaling. And I believe everyone needs to ultimately figure out how to sublimate. It won't be journaling for everyone, so you need to figure out what that is for you. Which brings me to the spiritual element of all this. Being inspired to write and being inspired through writing connects you to a higher consciousness that has been historically referred to for millennia by human beings as connecting to the spirit. After all, spirit and spiritual and inspiration all have the same root word, and so does respirator. In most languages, the word for spirit and breath are the same exact word. The word inspire literally means breathed into. And all my creative friends out there probably know exactly what I mean when I word it like that, because I'm sure plenty of you can remember times when you were writing something or creating something and the inspiration came so intensely that it felt like it was coming from outside yourself, like someone breathed it into you. The poet Ruth Stone talked about when she was a little girl growing up in rural Virginia on her family's farm. She would be out working in the fields and she'd hear a poem coming toward her. And she knew when she heard it, she'd have to run like hell to try to catch it. And sometimes it would move so fast that she'd miss it. Other times when she would catch it, she would literally feel it flowing right through her as the inspiration comes to write out this poem. And other times it would go so fast she would almost barely miss it and catch it by the tail, knowing that if she didn't catch it, it would go on to the next poet worthy to be inspired by this poem and actually write it out. I know that all sounds really gnarly and maybe a little bit too supernatural for you all, but if you've ever actually created something, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And as leftists, we need to be open to all the inspiration we could possibly get from wherever it comes as we're imagining a better world and actualizing it in our everyday life with an imagination that goes way beyond the imagination of any capitalist out there. Journal a bit. I suggest actually finding something to write down in. Some of you may have an actual journal to write down that is like super blank and that you got a long time ago and never actually used it. And if you don't have something, just use a random piece of paper or a back of a receipt or something. Just write. And some of you may be like, yeah, but it's easier on my phone or easier on my computer. Usually people say that may be a bad idea because it's so easy to be tempted by all the distractions, by the notifications that are popping up, by the other applications all around as you're typing. And when you're able to just have this in front of you, it's a lot easier to not get distracted. But, I mean, if you could write on your phone and computer without getting distracted, then go for it. I remember when I got my first journal as a little kid and I really wanted a journal to write in, and I've always loved writing my entire life. And so I asked for one for my birthday and my parents got me one and I opened it in my birthday party surrounded by my other little kid friends. And I remember one of them was like, "Why'd you get a journal? It's not like you're going to be famous or anything." Because at the time, a lot of us as little kids, our only concept of journals was like the diaries we had to read as little kids in elementary school, like the Diary of Anne Frank or random other diaries. And I think a lot of people think like that too, that whatever they're writing, they're worried about how other people will read it. Just write for yourself. This isn't for anyone else. And that's the point too. Another reason it's always been hard for me to write in journals is because I've always, my whole life, created stuff for others, whether it was music or writing or videos. It's always been to like for other people to see. And so that's always been a challenge for me. I know it's a challenge for a lot of people out there. Whenever they're writing, they constantly get voices in their head of like, well, how can I present this to others? Stop that.
Stop it.
This isn't for that. And I think it's also really helpful for creatives out there to have a practice where you're only writing for yourself. And I think that could make you more creative in the area of writing and creating for others. And so I'm actually wanting to get way more involved in journaling. And so I was talking to some of my friends last night, including Colin and my other friend Stephanie, and we're like, all right, let's make this pact, this accountability pact. We're going to wake up at 6 a.m. every single morning, first thing, before we do anything, just write for 30 minutes, put on a stopwatch, and just stream of consciousness, write. And yeah, I got up at 6 a.m. this morning. I was super duper tired, but I did it. And so I want to keep doing it. So maybe I'll make a part 2 on journaling here on this channel as I'm getting more and more involved in journaling and I could speak more from my own personal experience. And so let's journal, my friends. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have a journaling practice of your own, or if you've journaled on and off throughout your life and how that's been for you. Or if you want to actually start journaling with me at 6 a.m. every single morning, try it out. Also, if you want to see me talk about this stuff I talk about on YouTube in a more freeform and interactive way, go follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/whoisdamon. Right now we're streaming every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time. I'll see you over there on that. Also, I'd greatly appreciate any support. So go check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Damon Garcia, and go support me over there. Shout out to my patrons who are already supporting me. Karen in Colorado, Ranger Jenny, Refined Your Scene, James Finlay, New Transcendentalist, Rob Hutton, Jack, Jacob McCarthy, Thury Plebe, Mike Lodato, and Frank Morales. Love you all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.